Welcome back to another exciting episode of Ignite the Beacon. I'm one of your hosts, Lieutenant DeLeon, and I'm joined by...
I'm Technical Sergeant Prowant. Here at Keesler Air Force Base, we always have a need for passionate instructors who want to make a difference and an enterprise level impact. And if you want to do that, there's no greater way to do it than becoming an instructor. So today, we're joined by a couple of guests that we'll be talking to here in a second. But first, we're going to talk about our goal for the podcast.
So our goal is to have an open-minded conversation about the benefits and really the experience of what it's like to be here as an instructor. And today, we've got two guests in here with us that are warrior-minded individuals in the 1 Bravo 4 career field. So that being said, gentlemen, if you guys could introduce yourselves for today.
Well, I'm Sergeant Butler, and I've been an instructor here at Keesler since January of this year.
And I'm Technical Sergeant Austin Cooperrider. I've been here for a little bit over 2 years now.
Give us a little bit about your background before y'all got this assignment. Well, actually, before we even get into that, did you volunteer to be an instructor?
Actually, no, I didn't. I had been over in San Antonio for about 6 years, so I knew I was hot for orders, and I tried to apply for a position up in Colorado Springs, but Air Force said, no, actually, how about Keesler?
Okay. And whenever that happened, like, what was that like? It was an email, or how did it all play out?
It was actually kind of funny. I had a coworker was like, did you hear? And apparently from the senior enlisted leader down, like, he got notified around the same time and pulled me into our Mass Sergeant's office, and, oh, no, you're showing up on our outbound.
Okay. What were your initial thoughts?
The biggest thing is that going to have to upheaval the whole family. You know, the military life of moves. That was the biggest concern. The other part was a little bit of timing of my wife's a teacher, and so in the move in the middle of the school year kind of caused some rifts, and so we were able to work with the leadership here and over at in San Antonio and kind of worked some creative deals.
What was your initial impression of Keesler when you first got here?
I have always heard mixed things about the base, and like I said, when I came TDY here, everything I heard about Keesler, all the rumors and stuff, wasn't true. It turned out it was actually a really nice base. And I learned it's because due to the devastation of Katrina, a lot of the base had to be completely rebuilt up. So I came, and the whole area is nice. Biloxi's nice, Gulfport's nice, and the base, it feels like a new, fresh base, and everyone seemed pretty happy. You know, so that was my first impression coming here, and it just completely grounded the rumors I had heard about it.
Yeah, when you talk about the local area, Katrina absolutely had a massive impact on this place, and you can still see a lot of the battle scars and empty lots where a house used to sit. But I think that the community came back together, and actually the whole nation kind of rose up and formed a really tight community of support around here, and it's really never left this area. And so those ripple effects have kind of bled into not just Keesler, but even the surrounding areas. So I think that might be a little bit what you're experiencing too.
I think for me it was beforehand. My first career field was through Keesler as a tech school. Then I've come back again the second time for 1 Bravo, and so I've known Keesler for the last 12 years or so since I've been in. Whether or not I've been here constantly, yes, it constantly evolves, but I really think it was that sense of knowing that I saw it as a student, and then as soon as I got here, it took a little bit to realize, no, this is now a permanent party base. I am on the other side of that paradigm. And so now all these students, yes, I have to keep that certain type of distance, but at the same time, we're still all airmen and how we're supposed to help each other. And so some of the volunteer ops that I've done kind of been in the triangle again, and kind of realizing that little dynamic of, oh, now students are reporting to me, and it throws you off beat for the first few times.
Yeah, and I think that is very common. I think a lot of students, it's really hard for them to separate the idea of, because it's kind of a stressful time for them and it's meant to be, right? We're trying to form and mold them into the airmen that are going to be successful out in the battlefield later, right? And so it's meant to be a little challenging. There's not all the civil liberties afforded to them, right? There's the phases and all those things. And so those things kind of linger with them. They have those memories associated, but there's a lot more to the area. And then when you're permanent party,
it's an eye-opening experience, really. And even
absolutely.
I can speak to that myself, just being a first assignment instructor here, graduating tech school last year and a half ago, and then immediately the next day flipping over, like, oh, this is my job now. And I was like, oh, I don't have these restrictions anymore. It's kind of a really wide, eye-opening experience for me. So I can only imagine it was like that for y'all as well. So you mentioned some initial concerns. What were those initial concerns? Because I know our viewers, they have a lot of concerns maybe about wanting to click the button, being an instructor. What were some of those concerns that you had?
Mainly, again, the family side. With my wife being the teacher, she actually was working on a 2-year certification, and it was literally year 1 complete, she finished starting up year 2. So it requires an employer to sponsor her. So if we pulled out, she would not complete the certification, nor would she actually probably ever get another employer to put her forward for it. So that's where part of that deal kind of worked out of, hey, let's push my report no later than date, so that way I don't have to PCS without her, and then kind of drag the feet on getting set up and here and all that.
That's awesome. It's really, I know it's tough, but everyone wants some sort of accommodations made, but like it's great that they were able to allow that for y'all.
Yeah, and I know that sometimes that may or may not be the case. It just happened to be work around certain deals of, hey, BIC is a requirement, and the standard, the instructor course. Lackland's an AETC school, so I kind of talked to senior enlisted leaders of both units and the AETC school out there, and we kind of worked out where I took BIC before I even PCS'd here.
Whoa.
So I showed up, hit the ground running. Now I
Didn't even
can't.
know you could do that.
Yeah, it was just talking to people and say, hey, is this something that we can do? Now, obviously, depending on how far ahead, what's their availability, and is that something that they want to see on the regular of everyone hitting BIC before they show up here? But from the standpoint of senior enlisted leaders, I showed up ready to instruct. I didn't have to wait 2 months before I could even start instructing.
Kind of along those lines, what would you say has been your most rewarding time as an instructor here? Something that sticks out in your memory as a rewarding moment?
I'd say it's getting those students that you can tell just coming in, they're going to have a rough time. Like you can tell that they're not going to have a very squeaky clean through the class that you're instructing. But then as you get those light bulb moments going on, and when you think, okay, they're going to barely pass, and then all of a sudden they knock out maybe a 90. Something that just stands out, like not only did you do it, you knocked out of the park, and you could tell that what you instructed immediately got sunk into their head, and they've learned that concept. And the fun thing is that's every 2-3 weeks that you get those moments. And that feedback, that constant feedback loop is there, and that I think is something that you're not going to ever get in the operational field. Heck, half the time you feel like I felt like I was an imposter, right? The cyber imposter syndrome of, I don't know what I'm doing. I was doing networking security analysis. So either there's nothing on the network or I'm an idiot and I don't know what's on there. Versus I'm constantly getting that feedback every day. And there's nothing that can beat that.
Yeah, and I know that in the beginning, when your very first one, you might have that imposter syndrome feeling, but it kind of, after another iteration or two, like you just get a confidence born and demonstrated ability, and it just kind of.
You ease your way into it and just build up that experience, and at this point it's just, oh man, this is just natural to me, kind of thing.
The most rewarding thing is just the reactions of my students and how excited they get. Because a lot of these students that come through the schoolhouse, they are like hungry for knowledge. This is not an easy field to get into. So they're all in here ready to gung-ho. And when I tell my stories from my operational days, the past 5 years, I have a lot of cool stories I get to tell them as I teach them and how it applies to what they're going to be doing. Their focus is like aimed right at me, and they're like really invested, and their faces light up, and they just get excited, and that excites me and makes me happy. I was like, I'm teaching the future, the cyber warfare operators here, and someday I'm going to be working with these guys who are excited about this field and are excited to do what I was just talking about. And then that last part where they go and graduate, and they're, it's very rewarding to see them, like, and how happy they are and how proud their families are.
What do you guys feel here about the way you can develop yourselves? I know that there's kind of maybe a stigma about coming here. Oh, I'm losing out on opportunities for growth and development, or developing myself. So,
well, I'll say this has been the best assignment for that growth for myself in the last 2 years. I think part of it stems from, in the operational field, at least when I previously was in it as a staff sergeant or a junior tech, there's very little leadership opportunities. It's just by the sheer nature of, as in defensive side, there's not that many positions that really need to be filled, and it's based off of whatever ops tempo you're on. But as soon as I got here, I found out, oh, because we have everything broken up in blocks, and we need to have someone who is a subject matter expert who constantly develops that block, all of a sudden I found out, no, I'm a lead. And I was able to take that and ran with it. And I constantly innovated my entire block, changed our assessments and stuff like that. And then from there, it's just realizing where I can fit into the entire base. And I kind of opened up my aperture, and that was nice to be able to start getting involved in stuff like that. And then also personally, I started and finished my master's here. While I also had
What's your master's in?
cybersecurity through WGU. So
Okay.
getting all the certs that come through with it, and it was nice. It directly correlates to our instruction. But the crazy thing was, I started that halfway through my wife being pregnant, and then the baby being born. Took a little bit off, and so that was a challenge. But that was one of the benefits of being here is the amount of flex time that I had as an instructor. To okay, I'm sitting here. There's no task that needs to be done. I'll go ahead and study, do what I need next for my master's work. And that was nice to be able to go through.
They have so many opportunities for us to just take certifications as well, particularly SANS. Like, there's no shortage of any SANS vouchers.
What's SANS?
SANS is one of the more elite cyber certification companies out there.
Okay.
Our tech school or our IQT used to be required to have one of those certs. Not so much anymore, but that changes constantly. But at all the units, we're constantly taking these certs, usually dependent on your work role. But here, as instructors, that way we can keep up to date with our career field and the ever-changing nature of cyber. They are happy to give us any training we need to make sure we stay up to date, because teaching the same foundational knowledge, while valuable, can make us stagnant, and that's what we want to avoid. So any cert we want, we can apply for it, and they're like, yeah, here's a voucher. You go take that course, you get that cert.
And kind of from both of your perspectives, it kind of sound like this was an opportunity. Well, for you specifically, you had that conversation about wanting to grow. This is the place to do it, and you're doing it by going after these certs. And what that's doing is showing that you're trying to show that you have potential value later on. I got a couple of pieces of paper to my name, a master's, a couple of SANS certs, right? All this inside of my career field is going to show that I am taking steps on my career, my pathway to what's next, right? For you, heading towards master, right? Showing that you already have those things lining up. I mean, that's the kind of things that they're looking for, right? Is that self-improvement. And you're a Mass Art and Select
Yes.
as
I got
well
picked
as
up this summer.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a great base to get promoted at. And I think it's because the roadmap, not only will you find a mentor here who can help you build that roadmap, but there's also steps in place for you to go and walk it. Not every base is like that, especially not the last base I was at. 160 people, right? There's not, whatever self-development or personal development is going on is very slim pickings. So, but this base, there's so much.
Yeah, I'd say some of it comes from the idea is that when you're in that ops tempo, you have that little bit of aperture of, this is my normal day work schedule, but then I have to worry about the outside of, maybe I'm about to get deployed. What am I going to do while I'm there, or stuff like that? Versus here, it's your ops tempo is even a little bit narrower because you have that time to admin develop ahead of time or in the afternoon, evening. And then otherwise, you can kind of take some of that time back for yourself, that development. And I found that just being able to have that self-reflection of kind of how you said, finding mentors, okay, what is it that I can do in my next step? And now that I've kind of taken that knee, I'm not trying to burn myself out in just the ops in of itself. I can actually take that self-reflection and where do I need to improve? And that was kind of a good time for me to do that in the last 2 years.
We're talking more about your family now. Are you all living on or off base?
I'm off base.
Okay.
I'm off base. We really wanted to be on base.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we had 2 Huskies, which we're not allowed on base housing, unfortunately, so that's something to note. But we live in Gulfport, so I have like a 20-minute commute, which I live way farther away than I did when I was at Lackland, but it still takes me a short amount of time to get to base here than I did at Lackland because of the traffic. No traffic
There's
here.
no traffic, absolutely. I've
Unless
only
it's
heard
cruising the
horse
coast.
Yeah, true.
Do y'all both rent, or did y'all buy a house?
So I bought a new build. I came in just as like some of the housing prices or the market was going nuts, and so the new build company, they kind of, hey, well, if you close early, we'll pay off a little bit of the interest rate. So I locked in 5%, which now is okay. compared to what they were trying to offer back in 2020 of like 2% of a refinance.
Yeah, the reason I bring it up is because if people don't know, I mean, right now, I mean, like this is a really great place to live, historic, and there's a lot of houses, a lot of property. Definitely, the market is always, especially with the military coming in and out, the market's always moving. So, and here, in comparison to the rest of the country, houses are a little cheaper. And like I wish that when I was a younger airman, someone had told me to buy a house, and I waited till I was a little older on in life, but if I would have been starting then, I would have been all right now. But I'm fine now, but I'm just saying, like, I wish that I would have bought one. With buying a house or choosing where you're going to live, it also kind of affects school. And so I know your kid isn't quite school age yet. Are they in the CDC or daycare? What's...
No, so actually after we moved here, my wife got a new job, a remote job, where she works for the Alzheimer's Association hotline. So she gets to work from home. So thanks to our instructor's schedule, it actually works out where our son will take a nap and my wife will start work. She starts work at 3. And so I leave work between 3 and 4, and by the time I get home is when he's waking up from his nap. So we kind of have it perfect where we don't have to worry about childcare.
Okay. Save some money.
Exactly.
Like a lot.
Childcare is expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about $1,000 a month for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's going on with you? Schools and daycare?
So the biggest reason where we went was some daycares, they kind of keep your kid just safe and all that and try to keep that environment nice. Others where they do the educational aspect. We wanted to splurge to make sure our child gets some education along with it in that preschool era. But the other part was that it happened to coincide to early drop-off and late pickup for my kid, the other child that's in school. So same school district and everything. So just kind of one of those perfect opportunities for us. But as for the district that we have, we're up in the D'Iberville area. So it's one of the better ones in the area. I think depending on your metrics, there's some that are better, Ocean Springs, but that's super expensive in that area. But we're seeing our child grow and prosper in the D'Iberville St. Martin community there.
So one last question here, and then we're going to wrap it up. So what advice would you give someone, right? So we're expecting to be hitting an audience of people who maybe never thought about becoming an instructor or on the fence about becoming an instructor. What advice would you have for them?
I'd say, honestly, the job satisfaction, because no matter what, when you're in the ops field, you're going to have those times where it's lulls, ups and downs. Maybe you get those really good wins, which is great, but you're going to get those good wins every week, almost every day as an instructor. And knowing that you are actually molding the career field that you're going to be going back into eventually is the other amazing aspect of this job.
And my advice, and it's the same advice I actually give my students, and that's to stay adaptive. Cyber, constantly changing. Our career field, the Air Force, has been making a lot of changes. We're constantly changing, and that's especially relevant in our career field. So I always say, stay adaptive. And what I mean by that is not just grow with the career field, but grow as a person as well. For example, someone who's been operating for 5 years like I was, eventually you start getting away from that foundational knowledge, and the foundation is what holds up your career and your skills. And if you don't maintain that foundational knowledge, you can start to slip in spaces. So that was actually one of the reasons I volunteer, and that's why I would recommend to volunteer to come here as an instructor as well, to get these experiences, to be adaptive, to grow yourself.
That has been our episode today for Ignite the Beacon, where you can have your lasting impression and lasting legacy within your career field and make a difference in the next generation of airmen to come.
What we're hoping for you is that if you think this might be the move for you and that you want to become an instructor, we ask that you go to MyVector, go to Talent Marketplace, and go in there and look for job listings for your AFSC. We absolutely would love it if you would click that button, but make sure that you talk to your chief and your chain of command to make sure it's the right fit for you and for the Air Force. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Ignite the Beacon. We'll see you next time.